Hello, welcome to our breakdown of UFC 285 for Dine Sports. It's going to be John Jones making his return to the Octagon this weekend against Cyril Gane in what's an awesome pay-per-view card, kicking off March. February did have some lackluster fight nights, things of the sort, but March is absolutely loaded. And I look forward to watching this awesome card here with you to start, Nick. How's it going? I'm excited to break it down with you tonight.
Yeah, good man. Very much excited for this card. This is certainly one of the best we've had so far this year. Probably the best we've had so far this year. Obviously a big main event, but top to bottom, this is a loaded card. Really good fights everywhere. A lot of prospects that they're trying to kind of showcase here. So you got to kind of play that UFC narrative in. There is a lot of huge juice though on a lot of the favorites. So we're gonna have to get creative in how to attack some of these as far as bets are concerned.
Yeah, certainly. And as you said, from top to bottom, this card is stacked. We will go top to bottom, breaking it down as always, giving our thoughts on each of these fights prior to our final predictions being posted on Dine Sports Saturday, day of the event. We'll start right at the top, the main event, the heavyweight championship of the world. John Jones moving up after a 3-year hiatus and facing Cyril Gane for the heavyweight belt vacated by Francis Ngannou. And this is a sick fight. For a martial arts fan, you got to be excited to see Jones back in the octagon, love him or hate him. It's been so long now to see the improvements he may have made in his time away, to see the added weight going up to heavyweight. Some of the guys he was beating, even at light heavyweight, it looked like he dwarfed. He was bigger than a lot of the competition there. I think he's going to fit in fine in the heavyweight division. And, Gane poses an interesting test right from the jump because this is a elite striker who's going to be faster than any other heavyweight, faster than a lot of the guys John Jones would have been facing at light heavyweight. But it is going to be a testament to John Jones if he's able to overcome a challenge like Cyril Gane, the former interim champion. And get the win here in his very first fight at the heavyweight limit. I guess Jones is floating around 250, 245 here fight week. Looks built. Added on the muscle the right way, took the time to do so. And while he's not going to have the size advantage by any means over Cyril Gane, I think we are going to see very similar builds in the octagon. And, Jones with his length, he should fare fine against a striker like this. If it is to be contested in close, it is just Gane in his mobility, his speed for the heavyweight division. Going to pose an interesting test to who many consider the greatest of all time. I think when it comes to breaking down this fight, it's pretty clear. Obviously, there's concerns with John Jones coming off hiatus. But what it really boils down to is he is the best to do it. He is the guy who has gone nearly undefeated as a pro. A disqualification loss, but aside from that, always finds a way to win, whether doing so in a clean way or not. And I think again he's going to find a way to get his hand raised here in this fight against Cyril Gane, whether it be utilizing his wrestling, which I think is the clearest path to victory for him, against a French guy, against a guy in Gane we saw held down, wrestled by Francis Ngannou. If he's able to implement his style and make this a wrestling heavy attack early on, John Jones should realize a lot more success, in this fight as it goes late, as that championship medal starts to kick in, and as Cyril Gane starts to tire, he really struggled to get up off his back in those championship 4th and 5th round when facing Ngannou. So I think that's a clear path to victory for John Jones. If he elects to stand, we know how creative a striker he is. We know what he could do with that insane reach that he has. I think he's going to do okay with Cyril Gane on the feet. But obviously, I worried about prolonged kickboxing exchanges against a guy who's been so much more active and has such good timing as is. So, it's a tough fight, but I do think Jones is the right side. We're seeing him right now sitting at a -150 up to a -170 favorite, starting to gain more steam as this fight draws closer. And I think Jones is going to get my money this weekend in his return. I think it's tough to bet against him. And even with the hiatus, I believe he's going to be able to get through heavyweights like Cyril Gane, one of the best in the world. I just think the stylistic challenge isn't really posed here as it would be against a Stipe or, a Curtis Blades. So I got John Jones getting the win this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you for the most part, pretty much everything you're saying. John Jones, absolute legend, undefeated, like you said, other than that one DQ against Hamill. I mean, he is one of the best to ever do it. I really don't think there's an argument for that. Sure, he's had the PED use, obviously a ton of issues outside of the cage, but when we're talking about cage fighters and just what they've accomplished, especially with the UFC, I mean, there's really no one whose resume stacks up next to his. I think he has as many title defenses as Khabib had wins in the UFC. So that just kind of speaks to just how great his career truly has been. I mean, the tricky part about this fight is the 3-year layoff, and not just because he's been out, it's because he's moving up a weight class. And where you have like a jump from featherweight to lightweight, where it's only 10 pounds or so, when you're going from light heavyweight to heavyweight, that's a 56-pound increase that you need to make happen. And to be effective against someone like Cyril Gane, who is big for the division and cut for the division, he doesn't carry much extra weight. It is a little bit intimidating picking Jones here. I'm on Jones as well, but it's under the assumption that he's going to wrestle. I think if he stands for 15 minutes, it's going to be a very close fight on the feet. Gane just really good moving in and out of range, moving side to side. I think Jones's best striking is actually going to come in the clinch. The elbows, the knees, that Thai plum. Obviously, Cyril Gane's familiar with the Thai style, but really Jones, his unconventional way of approaching it is unlike anything we've really seen in the cage before. But yeah, man, I mean, I'm looking at pictures now. They just finished media day. Jones doesn't look like super cut or anything. People are calling him Jamal Hall Jones, like, because he kind of looks like Jamal Hill's physique right now, which is pretty funny. But I mean, the thing is, he does still have that slight reach advantage. I do think he's still going to be able to lift Cyril and grapple. People want to talk about how he has small chicken legs or whatever. Like, Cyril's not going to just solely attack those legs, and if he does, I think that is going to create opportunities for Jones to take him down. The big thing for me here, Cyril Gane's takedown defense in the UFC is only 55%. We've seen him taken down not just in the Ngannou fight, but other times before. And if Jones is going to execute a wrestling heavy game plan, I think he's going to look like the sizable favorite that he is growing to here. I will say we are starting to lose value on this line, though, and that is frustrating for sure. Jones opened up as a slight underdog, and now we're seeing him as almost a 2-1 favorite. I still like him. I still think he gets it done. I will be interested to see weigh-ins tomorrow, not because I'm concerned about him missing weight, just to see the type of physique he is in truly. The pictures today, I mean, people are posting Nick Diaz when he came back. Like, I don't know. Twitter's going off, but Twitter does what Twitter does. Hopefully that closes the line more than anything. But I will say this, I am not as confident in Jones here as I have been on him in the past. I don't think that should be a surprise to anyone. Whenever there's a layoff like this or someone moving up a weight class, you just have to give some pause. We saw it recently with Volk moving up. He had a great fight against Islam, but I think the size was the difference there that prevented him from getting the win. Obviously, Izzy moving up to take on Jan Blachowicz. It's just a rare feat, and I don't think that this is the same test that Jones is facing with Cyril Gane, because there are the gaps in Gane's grappling defense. But at the same time, I mean, there's just so many X factors here. When there's that many question marks, it's never wise to get too heavily invested. But all that being said, I've never bet against John Jones before. I'm not going to start now. But at the same time, I'm not going to go super heavy on him here just because there are so many question marks. But I do think he gets it done. I like that he's been training with Cejudo at Fight Ready. That tells me he's going to do a lot of wrestling here. If he doesn't, he could be in trouble. Gane's super dangerous on the feet. But yeah, this is the biggest moment in Gane's career. Obviously, they really built up that fight between Gane and Ngannou, but this is next level stuff here. And I'm really excited to see Jones back in the cage. I do think he gets it done, but my confidence might not be as strong as I'd like it to be, laying around 170 at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably still going to get involved if that's the number I have to.
Yeah.
That's what it's going to
It's like a
be.
unit play, though.
Yeah, 200 is starting to feel like you really don't want to, drop anything big on it. But yeah, I mean, the fight IQ, just touching on, is probably going to be the difference. Training with Cejudo Fight Ready is only going to improve that. Find John easier entries into those takedowns. I like his chances a lot here, getting the win, getting the heavyweight belt, and maybe even defending it this year. Should be a great fight. Looking forward to it. We got another title fight on this card, the women's flyweight title with Valentina Shevchenko making yet another defense here against Alexa Grasso. Shevchenko right now a -800 favorite against Grasso in this spot, about where she should be. I mean, Grasso's good, great boxing. We've seen what she's able to do in some exchanges on the ground, but I mean that's going to be the divide in this fight. If she wants to stand and strike with Shevchenko, it's going to be the kickboxing that's the difference. Well, Grasso has very good hands. I think it's going to be tough to for her to match the offensive variety that Shevchenko is able to put out. And just from that southpaw stance, what Shevchenko is going to be able to do, getting inside and putting strikes on Grasso in the early going of this fight, I think could be a difference in really taking away that confidence early. Additionally, Shevchenko, while she's not always going to wrestle, she does average, more than 2.5 takedowns a fight. She is somebody who knows the best path to victory and how to execute inside the octagon. And I could see her choosing that path here against Grasso, just taking away her opponent's best weapon in her boxing and neutralizing her on the mat with the dominance we've seen her display there in the past. She has a strength advantage over a lot of flyweights. I think Grasso is not going to be a difference. It's not like Grasso is the biggest or strongest of these flyweight contenders, but just one of the better pure strikers in the division. And I think Shevchenko is the best. So it's going to be a very tough test for Grasso trying to pull off the upset here. I don't think she's going to be able to do so. I think she is a super fun and dynamic contender. It is just in this division, Shevchenko has proven that these girls are really going to have a tough time finding a way to beat her just because of how well-rounded she is and how good she is in just about every position in the cage. So I don't see much different going on today. Shevchenko has proven the past couple of years to be one of the most consistent, one of the most active of the current reigning champions. And yeah, I think she keeps the belt here. We're more than likely going to be hearing and still. And for me, it's just a decision. Are you going inside the distance with Shevchenko or thinking this one goes 5? But what are your thoughts? Any shot on Grasso?
Yeah, no shot on Grasso here. I do think Valentina's looked more beatable lately. Obviously, that fight with Talia Santos was so close, and there's certainly an argument to be made that she lost that decision. That headbutt really turned the tide of the fight, and if that didn't take place, she might not be the champion right now. But that is a bunch of what ifs. She is still the champion, and this matchup with Grasso is much better than what you saw against Talia Santos. I think the kryptonite for Valentina is going to be a strong grappler like we see with Talia, or maybe an Erin Blanchfield who's been climbing up the ranks. But Valentina on the feet, she poses something that Grasso's never really seen before. Grasso, outstanding offensive striker, but she absorbs more than 4 strikes per minute. Valentina is super defensive, absorbing less than 2 per minute. She's just really tough to hit. I think Grasso's aggressive style could make it tougher on the feet. And all that being said, if Valentina chooses to, like you mentioned, she could take this fight to the mat. 2.5 takedowns per 15 minutes. So in a 5-round fight, that's closer to 4 takedowns. So you got to think that kind of secures close to 4 rounds. It's going to be a question of how quickly Grasso can get back to her feet if she is grounded, as far as if this fight's going to go the distance or not. As someone who's backed Valentina inside the distance plenty of times before, I'm kind of staying away here. I'll probably tie her into parlays on the money line. But it's just, I don't know, man. She always plays with her food. She always fights close. She likes to edge out rounds, and I don't know. I just don't see her going in there and really chasing that submission or really grappling hard to get Grasso out of there early. I think she's totally content to kind of point fight with her on the feet unless she starts falling behind, which maybe you back her by decision and get some value on that. But for me, I'd rather just tie her into parlays. I think she's going to be fine here. I think she's pissed off about the narratives that Talia might have won that fight. I think she's pissed off about the narratives that Erin Blanchfield's the next big thing in the division. So yeah, all signs point to Valentina here. I think she looks sharp. What we've seen from her this week so far as interviews, training, open workouts, etc. I think she retains the belt. I think she does so pretty convincingly. Grasso is going to probably have moments early on the feet, but if Valentina is falling behind at all in the striking, I don't know. I think she's just going to start grappling at that point. I wish she would just come out and grapple flat out. Same with John Jones. It's like there's clear paths to victories for these champs, but at the same time, I mean, I don't know. I get she's going to want to hang on the feet. I think Grasso is good offensively, but as far as defense goes, she's just not on Valentina's level. So I'm on Shevchenko here. I think she gets it done. maybe inside the distance. I think more likely by decision though. But yeah, and still, I think Santos or Blanchfield are going to be much tougher spots. If we're ever looking to fade Valentina, it might be one of those. It's not here.
And let's not leave out Manon Farrow, but
Yeah, no, I'll leave her out.
okay, that's fair. We can move next to the featured bout, and I'm excited to hear your breakdown between these welterweights. Jeff Neal facing a minus 550 Shavkat Rakhmonov, still undefeated, moving up the ranks here at welterweight. Now a matchup of two top 10 fighters. What are your thoughts here? Shavkat getting another win?
Yeah, I think so. I've been on the Shavkat train since he's been in the UFC. I've backed him every single fight. I've bet him inside the distance every single fight. I'm going to do so again here. We're getting him, I think he's almost minus 500 now, but you could get him inside the distance around like minus 160, minus 170, much better price. So Jeff Neal, obviously dangerous, one of the best strikers in the division, carries a ton of power. But as far as grappling goes, I mean, Magny was able to take him down pretty easily. He has a decent 85% takedown defense, but he really hasn't been shot on that much. Um, I think the line on the money line is a bit too wide, but the path is just so clear for Shavkat here. He cut through Magny on the mat. Magny cut through Neal on the mat, and we've also seen Shavkat continue to improve his striking. He's been at Killcliff FC a lot lately, which is great. He's in a much better room of welterweights, training with the likes of Gilbert Burns, Ian Gary, who's also on this card. I just really like everything we've seen from Shavkat. I mean, he looks a little bit undersized size compared to some of the other guys in this division, but as strong and as dangerous as Neal is, he actually isn't that big. So Shavkat's going to have a little bit of a reach advantage here. And against the southpaw, it's going to be pretty easy for him to find those takedown entries. I like him a lot. I think he gets it done. I will say I don't want to go too heavy investing on him on the money line because Neal does have that one-shot power. But at the same time, I mean, the Luque fight was amazing. He looked great there, but he fought really close with Ponzo. That loss against Magny was just not a good look. I mean, Magny's been himself. He's been solid, but I don't know. I think Shavkat's on another level right now. I am a little bit surprised Neal chose to take this fight. Dangerous opponent, certainly a step up in competition. But yeah, I think it's Shavkat all day here. He probably gets it done via submission.
Yeah, and I'll say Luque really did not look himself in that fight against Jeff Neal. I mean,
No, he
I
didn't.
was yelling at him to get going, and yeah, it just looked awful. Neal, obviously, credit to him for a great win there. But yeah, as you said, dangerous guy on the feet, but when it comes to the grappling, I mean, we're going to see a different, quite the difference here with Shavkat on the mat, and Shavkat's elite striker as well. We've seen what he's capable of on the feet, but he knows to take fights down as needed. We saw him take advantage of Magny quite quickly when things hit the mat there. And yeah, it's just the aggression too. Shavkat chasing chokes, finding finishes, very high volume in the early going of fights. He's not going to match Neal when it comes to output on the feet, but I certainly do think Shavkat's going to elect to take this fight to the mat and should realize a lot of success in doing so. So yeah, I'm not taking going against Shavkat here. Maybe against some of the other top welterweight guys, but I think against Jeff Neal, he's going to be able to get the win. This is somebody who, while he's been established in the UFC for quite a while, has never been a really a top tier welterweight. And I think, again, Shavkat's going to run through just about anyone outside of the top 5 of this division. So yeah, I like him, as you were saying here. I think he is going to likely win inside the distance and likely by submission. All right, we'll move on now. A lightweight matchup between Mateusz Gamrot and Jalen Turner. Similar to you and Shavkat, I've been all over Gamrot since joining the UFC. Apart from his last fight against Beneil Dariush, was a bit nervous, and Dariush obviously put it on him. Was able to get the knockdown. Was able to put another loss on Gamrot's resume, and I think this is a spot here where we're likely to see him bounce back. I think Jalen Turner is a really dynamic and exciting striker in this lightweight division. But Gamrot is going to have the X factor of the grappling here that should be able to get the win. He likes to chase the takedown quite a bit. We saw him rolling a ton, in that fight against Arman Sarukian. And not only will he be looking for traditional takedowns against the likes of a Jalen Turner, but also more recklessly shooting, I believe. Obviously that's not something you love to hear, but when you're facing a guy with a 7-inch reach advantage, with 5 inches of height on you, you are going to find those takedowns come a lot easier. And Gamrot's a world-class wrestler. He's going to be able to push a higher cardiovascular pace than what Turner is used to in those grappling exchanges. And I see that's where this fight, there's going to be a divide. I mean, Gamrot also has great power on the feet. I could see him matching Turner in terms of that, but he really is not going to want to go back and forth with a guy who has such clean striking and has, a decisive reach advantage. I think grappling's going to be a clear path to success for Gamrot, and where the line currently sits -220, -230. That's where he's going to pay off that price tag, where he's going to show the divide between his and Turner's grappling. Somebody who is not one to bring the fight to the mat, and not always successful in doing so. So I think Gamrot's the pick here. Much cleaner record and a much cleaner fighter when it comes to jiu-jitsu and offensive wrestling.
Yeah, I'm with you for the most part. So this was supposed to be Jalen Turner against Dan Hooker. Hooker broke his hand. And then they had Jalen Turner listed against TBD for a few weeks before Gamrot decided to step up and take this fight. So yeah, this is a very, very tough matchup for Jalen Turner. Turner has a ton of hype right now, and it's warranted. I was very, very heavy on him against Brad Riddell when he won via submission in like a minute last time out. I think that's his one path here, is maybe he can catch Gamrot in some sort of submission, but we've never seen Gamrot submitted professionally. Really sound defensive grappling. I mean, the only time he's ever been submitted at all was in a grappling match against like jiu-jitsu legend Gary Tonin, and that took 7 minutes, and none of these rounds are going to be 7 minutes. So I like Gamrot here. I think he's going to be able to get the wrestling going. I don't know that he's going to be able to hold Turner down, but I think, like you said, he's going to have the better cardio over the course of 15 minutes. One thing about Turner, he has a massive advantage in this division with that reach and his height at 6'3", but he cuts a ton of weight, which is usually not a good sign for cardio. His last few fights, he's looked great, but he hasn't gone to a decision since he faced Matt Frivola back in 2019, where he was taken down a bunch of times. So, yeah, I think stylistically, this is Gamrot's fight to win or lose. I mean, the one reason you might want to pump the brakes is that it's on short notice, but he's a guy who stays in camp. He stays in the gym year round. So I don't expect that to be an issue here. I will say Turner's one of the kind of trendier picks I'm hearing around the industry this week. Like, I get it. He could maybe catch a sub or something like that. But at the same time, I mean, stylistically, there's just nothing about him that tells me he's going to be able to keep this fight standing for long. And if it does hit the mat, while he does have creative submissions, he is very long and wiry, and I don't know, kind of difficult to read in that way. Gamrot's kind of seen it all before. So, and yeah, just one more thing. We're looking at level of competition. I know I was heavy on Turner against Riddell, but before that, we're talking Malarkey, Uros Medic, Brock Weaver, Josh Kulabal. None of these guys are really even sniffing the top 15. Meanwhile, Gamrot's fighting Beneil, who's fighting for a title shot. He's been in there with Armin, many consider to be a future title contender. It's just levels at this point in their careers. And not only that, the styles also favor Gamrot here as well. So I like him here. I think he gets it done. Not sure he will inside the distance. Maybe I'll sprinkle a little bit on like late round props. I kind of like second or third round just as a stab, and then maybe just bet him on the money line, because if he does finish Turner, I think it's going to be late. But all that being said, I like Gamrot here, averaging nearly 5 takedowns per 15 minutes. I think he's going to need a bunch here. So I like him. I think Turner's a great young prospect, but this is just not the best matchup for him stylistically, especially when he's been mostly preparing to fight Hooker, who's just a pure striker. So.
Right, a matchup with Hooker, he would realize a lot more success on the feet. He's going to have longer periods to work, get his strikes going, and that just won't be the case against Gamrot. If he's smart, he's going to shoot early. He's going to shoot in the first round, and that's going to change the dynamic of this fight. So I'm with you. I like Gamrot a lot. And now the opening bout of the main card, Bo Nickel, 3-0 as a professional MMA fighter, sitting the -1800 favorite against Jamie Pickett here. I mean, this is a fight where obviously you have Bo Nickel, 3-time NCAA Division I wrestling champion from Penn State. Quickly transitioned to MMA, got awesome finishes on Dana White's Contender Series, and now taking this fight here, debuting against Jamie Pickett in what's likely a bit of a feeder fight. I mean, Jamie Pickett, serviceable middleweight. I mean, gotten a UFC win. I mean, not the worst, but certainly not the best. I mean, Jamie Pickett is not very dynamic when it comes to the ground. Bo Nickel, someone who's quick to shoot, quick to utilize that, collegiate wrestling pedigree that really nobody else has ever had inside of the UFC octagon. That's really what brings all the hype to Nickel, just how high level a wrestler he is. And I really don't see him being tested too much until he's in there with a extremely dynamic and explosive striker, which I do not grade Pickett. I mean, Pickett has good hands. He's going to use his jab. He's going to try to fight behind higher volume of strikes on the feet, but I just don't see him competing with a guy like Nickel, who's so strong, can so easily shoot from the southpaw stance, get to the legs of his opponents, and just knows how to finish takedowns unlike anyone else. So, I was not one to buy into the hype of Bo Nickel as a future champion already, but when it comes to taking a fight against Jamie Pickett here, I think minus 1,800 is going to make sense. He's going to look like a huge favorite as he goes in there and takes down a lot of these lower level middleweight guys. So I think this is the showcase fight for Bo Nickel on the main card of a John Jones pay-per-view, and we're going to see him absolutely run through Jamie Pickett.
Yeah, I totally agree. 2019 Hodge Trophy winner, which means he was the best wrestler in the nation at that time. He almost qualified for the 2020 Olympics, except he was in the same class as Jordan Burroughs, so that's really the only reason he wasn't there. Yeah, Bo Nickel, maybe a future contender. Obviously not the best grappling division as far as 185 goes. He certainly has a path to the title. When this fight got announced, I was honestly disappointed. Pickett is not a good opponent for him here. I don't mean to rag on the guy too much, but he was subbed quickly by Kyle Dawkins, who was recently cut from the roster. Nickel, in terms of strength and just pure grappling ability, is levels and levels above Dawkins. Training at a great camp, an American top team, spends a lot of time with Jorge Masvidal, where he's working on that striking, obviously the biggest hole in his game, but his strikings look pretty good, and it's mostly a means just to set up those takedown entries. I don't need to spend too much time on this one. I just think Pickett's probably getting cut after this. It's unfortunate that they're putting him in this spot, but this is a showcase for Nickel, very obviously. The same way they put O'Malley to open the cards when they were building him as a prospect. This is a prospect showcase. And two of the bets, I usually don't bet early in the week. Like, I like to wait, but I bet the under 1.5 on this fight when it was minus 285 pretty heavily. And I also already put a bet in on Nickel by submission at minus 165. I do not want to play minus 1,800 on him, but if you can get that under 1.5 anywhere near or below minus 300, I think that's value. And then by submission, I mean, maybe he could finish him via ground and pound, but that doesn't seem to be Nickel's style. He's really hunting for the subs. We've seen Pickett submitted a few times before. So at minus 165, that's just a great bet to me. I'm expecting that line to continue to inflate. So probably jump on that now if you can. But yeah, Nickel rolls here. He should dominate, and barring some sort of like injury or dramatic slip up, I don't know, he should just roll. And yeah, I'm all over Nickel, just finding creative ways to bet him, because you should probably never bet anything at minus 1,800. But yeah, there's certainly other ways to get to him.
Yeah, I'm not really sure exactly what my play will be on this fight. Maybe Nickel round 1, but I'm certainly not going to be hammering a minus 1,800 or tying him into every parlay I build. Should quite clearly have an excellent chance here of beating one Jamie Pickett, though. All right, the prelim portion of our card. This kicks off at 8 p.m. The featured prelim is about between Cody Garbrandt and Trevin Jones at bantamweight. Garbrandt sitting as a minus 180 favorite at current, which is a bit shocking to me. I mean, Garbrandt had all of 2022 off. His last fight was a knockout loss to Kai Kara France on a big pay-per-view card to end 2021. And the chin is a big concern for me when it comes to Cody Garbrandt. Always has been, always will be. And as he starts to add years to his career, it's going to be even harder to trust him to survive a full 15 minutes against some of the heavier hitters in this division. Trevin Jones is that. I mean, Trevin Jones is a elite grappler, a very good jiu-jitsu practitioner. but he also has heavy hands. We've seen him get knockouts at bantamweight. We saw what he was able to do to Mario Bautista, and yeah, he's just going to be very content to stand and bang with one Cody Garbrandt in this fight, given what we've seen from Cody in terms of defensive awareness and durability as of late. I think it's going to be a fight Trevin Jones could win on the feet, given his reach advantage. Fighting a guy in Garbrandt who's traditionally much smaller than most. Not that Trevin Jones is big for bantamweight, but I do see him having a slight size and strength advantage here. And while Jones has lost his last 3 fights, it has been close decisions. And, you know, I think against a lot of high-level wrestlers such as Javid Basharat, Ronnie Barcelos. It was a close fight against Barcelos his last time out. I certainly think he does have a higher ceiling than what we have seen thus far from him in the UFC. Obviously, the big upset win in his debut and beating of Timur Valiev. But I do like the potential of him pulling off the upset here as the underdog, just given Garbrandt's durability concerns, as well as just the way he's been fighting as of late. I mean, his performances, aside from, the Kai Kara France drop down to flyweight, up at bantamweight fighting Rob Font, getting picked apart. I just don't think there's much value on Garbrandt at this stage of his career. And at minus 180, I'm not picking him against a ton of guys. Jones isn't the highest level of competition. I don't believe this was the originally booked opponent either, but I do think Jones is going to be a pick for me here as the underdog, pulling off the win over Garbrandt, who I think is chin's dust.
Yeah, I'm on the other side of this one, and I get it. Cody, he has no chin left, and that's like the big meme. That's everyone knows it. I mean, if you touch this guy right, he probably goes out. I think the reason he was KO'd so easily against Kai was the weight cut, though. He looked terrible. And then I mean, the fight with Font, he obviously got his beat up bad, but his chin actually held up pretty well there. Before that, he KO'd at Sunsao, and then before that, we're talking about the long layoff before those fights with Dillashaw Munoz. So while the chin is an issue, I still think Garbrandt's levels above Jones. I just haven't been all that impressed with him. Obviously, he does have those few knockouts, but I think coming into the UFC, no one really expected that out of him. Like regionally, he wasn't some big knockout artist. Like he came in, had that huge win over Valiev, then Batista, and as fighters started to figure him out, they said, okay, let's just grapple this guy. I think Cody's going to grind him up against the cage here. I think he's going to fight smart. He's not going to stand in a firefight, and if he does, he's going to get KO'd. So I like Garbrandt. I think he gets it done. He's just a much better technical striker. And the thing with Trevin Jones, and we saw this a lot against both Barcelos and Basharat, on the feet, he's very hesitant to throw. Landing just over 2 significant strikes per minute. Not terrible numbers, but recently I think that's dropped significantly. I'd be interested to see what that looks like fight to fight. And then, yeah, I mean, Cody, it's not like I want to put a lot of money on him here, but I think I just have to pick him just based on who he is and what level of fighter he is. I mean, we see this all the time. Like Sunsao himself, who Cody knocked out, he was a huge underdog against Victor Henry. Then he wins, and it's like, oh yeah, we remember who he is now. I think we could have that with Cody here. And he was a guy fighting for the title, stuck in the top 5 for a while, was still top 10 at bantamweight for a while, and now he's getting a guy in Trevin Jones who is probably 1 loss away from getting cut from the roster. I mean, yeah. Jones is live for the KO. I think if you take Jones here, you take him by KO or you take him by finish, just get a little bit of extra juice on that line. I don't see him winning a decision against Garbrandt unless he's scoring like a bunch of knockdowns. And if he is, Cody's probably going to sleep. So I like Cody here. I don't mind a play on him on the money line. It's not a confident play, though, like you said, because of that chin. But yeah, I just think the path is too clear for Jones for Cody to completely fall into that trap as he has so many times before. I think this is do or die for both these guys. But more so for Cody. He's got a lot on the line here. I think he gets it done. I think he just stays out of danger and probably grinds out a decision.
Yeah, I again, it's going to be tough for him to last to a decision if Jones is able to connect on
he
the
went
feet.
5 with Font.
Yeah, Rob Font, who is a devastating knockout threat. But we will see come Saturday
we'll
in regards to this fight. And yeah, I'm glad we have a difference here. We will see about this next fight. Any differences with middleweights Derek Brunson and Dricus Du Plessis going up against each other. Du Plessis minus 220 against a Brunson currently at plus 180 odds. What are your thoughts on this matchup?
Yeah, this is a tough fight to call. I've gone back and forth on it. I think this is one of the tougher fights on the card to call because there's just so many question marks with both these guys. You know, I like to fade Duplessis. He's been on a tremendous run, very physically gifted and powerful striker, pretty good grappler, decent jiu-jitsu, very low fight IQ though. And I know the cardio isn't as bad as he makes it look because he seems to not be able to breathe through his nose. Like he always looks more tired than he is. And just his striking so unconventional. Everything about him when you watch him, it's like this guy shouldn't be as good as he is, but he's just so physically gifted and so powerful that he continues to climb through this division. When he's getting a matchup here against Brunson, I think he could continue to kind of do that just because Brunson has been chinny lately. But that being said, I mean, the path is so clear for Brunson as it always is. He's always an underdog in spots like this. We saw it against Shabazian. We saw it against Kevin Holland. Even Darren Till, he was the underdog. And it's just you take your guy down, who can be taken down in Driscus Duplessis, who's a decent grappler but not a great wrestler. Doesn't have good takedown defense at all. 50% so far in the UFC against far worse grapplers than Brunson. So the path is there, but then it's like, does Brunson still have enough in him to keep Duplessis down for 15 minutes? And that's where I get hung up. I'm still going back and forth on this. I mean, currently I like the value on Brunson, but at the same time, if Duplessis rushes him and knocks him out in 10 seconds, I'm not going to be surprised. So it's just, there's so many X factors here. I think the path is very clear for Brunson. I think Duplessis, if he keeps it standing, should be able to win on volume pretty easily. And could he also score that KO? So yeah, both guys have a clear path to victory. I think if you're looking at the line right now, there is value on Brunson around plus 200 on some books. I think that's a really good number. I could see investing on him there, but at the same time, I mean, I'm a little bit concerned about that chin. And yeah, is he? I mean, he's getting up there in age. We've heard him talk about retirement, which is never a good thing. So stylistically, I like the spot for Brunson, but all the other intangibles favor Duplessis here. So I don't know. I'm still torn, kind of leaning Brunson just on value. But at the same time, if I make that play, it's not a confident one.
Yeah, I absolutely love Duplessis in this spot. Couldn't agree less with your breakdown regarding Brunson. Let me say first, Duplessis does not have 50% takedown defense, or he does have 50% takedown
Yes, he
defense
does.
in the UFC. Yep, 2 total takedowns, one landed by Darren Till and one
Yeah, one
takedown
landed by
stuffed.
Darren Till.
Yeah, one landed
Maybe the
by
worst wrestler in the division.
one landed very good by Darren Till because of good timing, and then Duplessis completely shut him down thereafter. Landed 6 takedowns of his own. One other takedown stopped thus far in the UFC. So no one's shooting on him, and no one is going to find much success shooting on
He
him,
hasn't fought a wrestler.
given his
He hasn't
size and
fought a
frame in
wrestler.
this division. Duplessis will have the ability to stuff takedowns here against Derek Brunson. And I'm also not going to be playing Derek Brunson at a plus number in this spot, expecting him to wrestle, as was the case in his most recent performance against Jerry Cannonier, where he did implement a style and look good in the first 5 minutes of that bout before getting touched and getting finished, as has been the case in a few of his most recent losses. So I do think Duplessis is the up and rising star. I think he is the more dynamic of these two. He was the far better striker on the feet. A lot of people are, quick to make comments regarding his fight IQ and the style in which he fights. But I think he's great. I think he's very dynamic, high volume. He does throw from the hip sometimes. He really has a bit of an awkward style, but his ability to switch stances, his ability to land on either side, and his ability to find the chin of his opponents is just going to be the X factor here against a guy in Brunson who's going to be moving forward constantly. And I think Duplessis has the upper body strength to keep Brunson off of him, and unlikely to see a takedown heavy game plan implemented to great effect here, as Duplessis should be able to use his explosiveness to move out of most positions in the early going. And over the course of just 15 minutes, I do not think Brunson will be able to instill that wet blanket style we often see, shutting down opponents in their game plan. So I really like Duplessis in this spot. I do not think Brunson is going to hold him against the cage for prolonged periods or succeed in getting him to the mat multiple times. But we could disagree.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm almost more confident in Brunson.
Agape,
Based on your confidence in
looking at.
Duplessis, I want to go heavier. Like I'm siding with
And
Brunson.
I took Darren Till in the last matchup against Duplessis. I thought a better striker would get him out of there. He did not. Duplessis has really proved, even to me, somebody who's backed him from the
Answer me
jump,
this though.
how good
Just a
that he
couple
is.
questions. Couple questions. Who's the best wrestler in the UFC that Duplessis has faced so far?
Derek Brunson, coming
I
this
mean,
Saturday.
going into this fight,
Yeah, apart from that, no one.
no one. No
Yeah,
one. And obviously, Cannonier has pretty good defensive wrestling, and he got back to the feet. And I don't know. I think stylistically, it's a good spot for Brunson. I think the age and athleticism is what's preventing me from being confident in him. But just hearing how confident you are in Duplessis, maybe it's the competitive in me, the little brotherly rivalry. I think I might end up on Brunson now.
and I mean, you bring up inside the UFC, but I mean, Roberto Soldic. I mean,
Soldic isn't a great wrestler.
he has
He's
fought.
not. He's not a
All right.
wrestler.
Well, we'll
Agree to
you should,
disagree.
yeah, take Derek Brunson. If we agree to
At plus
disagree,
200,
well,
you're gonna lay. All right, yeah, we'll get there.
all right, we'll see come Saturday if Nick pulls the trigger on Derek Brunson or is just all talk here. Moving on, we have a women's flyweight bout with Viviane Araújo taking on Amanda Ribas. This is a pretty good fight. I mean, Ribas, the higher volume striker, where she'll have less power than Araújo in this spot. It's really going to be a fight contested, whether it be on the feet or on the mat. Rather close. I would figure Araújo to have the advantage if she elects to bring the fight down to the mat. But Ribas is an excellent grappler herself. I think her hands have improved over the course of her previous several fights, but this isn't really a fight I'm too excited in getting invested in. Women's MMA flyweights that have not realized the most success as of late. And, Reba's just somebody I'm not super confident backing just based on the performances we've really seen out of her the previous 2 years. So it's a close one. The odds right now, Reba's just slightly favored, minus 120, against Araújo sitting at plus 100. This is one I'm actually going to dig into a bit more before giving an official prediction. But my lean right now would probably go the way of Araújo. What are your thoughts?
I like Arujo. The first thing you said was that Rivas might be the higher volume striker. I mean, lately, maybe that's true, but Arujo actually lands more per minute. Rivas throws a ton, but she's a terrible striker. I mean, she has no real accuracy. She is aggressive. She's a tough girl. She has a good submission game, but I just think stylistically, this is a great spot for Arujo. Arujo coming off that loss to Grasso, who's fighting for the title on this card. Prior to that, she'd been on a nice run. Both these girls have lost to Shukagi, and so, like you said, it's a pretty even matchup, but we got to remember, Ribas recently moved up to 125. She looked pretty good last time out against Chukagian, but she was the much better grappler in that matchup. She's not going to have that advantage here. Arujo, 90% takedown defense in the UFC. I think this fight mostly stays standing. And yeah, I just see Arujo as the much more powerful striker. We've seen Ribas rock time and time again. I question this girl's chin. As talented and as gifted as she is, like we see her, who was it? Marina Rodriguez, who like knocked her out
Yeah.
twice in one fight because her dean didn't know to call it off. We just see her rock time and time again, and Arujo is one of the only women in this division that probably has enough power to put her out. So, not the most confident play, but if I'm going to get plus money on Arujo, I think she is the better striker, and this fight should mostly take place on the feet. I'm going to side with her here. I think she'll be bigger and stronger too, which could keep the grappling slightly in her favor as well. So I think Ribas, I mean, she probably need a sub here on all likelihood, but it is a tough fight. I just think people like to bet Ribas because she's like a fun personality more than she's a great fighter. I'm on Arujo here.
Yep, and again, that's my early lean here in the week. Moving on now, middleweight matchup: Julian Marquez facing Marc-Andre Barriault. This one's also pretty close, but Barriault has started to gain some steam, now sitting minus 150 against Marquez, who could be had at a plus 125. This is a pretty good matchup. I mean, both these guys, we haven't really seen them find much success against the higher level competition in the middleweight division. Marquez more explosive, I would say, more dynamic a striker. Somebody who is a bit varied fight to fight. Normally he's able to get late finishes and things of the sort in some of the matchups that he's had, but he's somebody that tends to have a better first and second round than second and third. Not always having the cardio to go a full 15 minutes hard, and normally a bit too reliant on his power, sometimes overthrowing and the like, draining the gas tank early. And just going up against somebody in Marc-Andre Barriault who has the gas tank, nicknamed Power Bar because of his ability to push a high volume pace and stay in a fight for a full 15 minutes. He lands more than one significant strike higher per minute than Julian Marquez is able. And obviously there's a couple holes in the game of each of these when it comes to defensive grappling, but I would find that the case a bit more for Barriault, who we just saw submitted late by Anthony Hernandez, who also finished prior to that matchup as well. Again, it's not a fight I'm super going to be involved in. I mean, Barriault, the recent losses, Hernandez, Chidi, and Jokwani, not the worst, but Marquez, he's just not really had the highest level of UFC wins. Beating Darren Stewart, beating Maki Pitolo, beating Sam Alvey. Like, none of these names are really that impressive. And while I could see him touching Barriault early or even finding a choke, depending on, if he's able to drop him or get this fight to the mat at some point. I think Barriault's just going to be the more consistent fighter over the course of 15 minutes, able to put on the better volume on the feet. And while Marquez may land the bigger and more meaningful shots, if Barriault's still there when it comes to the end of the third round, I think he's probably going to be the cleaner, the fresher fighter. So that's my lean right now. I think Barriault minus 150 is probably going to be the play for me.
Yeah, I'm leaning Barriault as well. I mean, this is a tough fight to call. I mean, Marquez probably the better finisher here. I think he's more likely to win via submission, more likely to win via KO. But Barriault's kind of better technically everywhere. So I do like Barriault to get it done. Not a confident play. I know you mentioned you wanted to spend a little more time with the last fight we talked about. For me, this is one of those fights I want to spend a little more time on. Marquez had been training under James Krause. Obviously, that gym is now defunct. So I want to kind of dig into what he's been up to, how seriously he's been taking this. He probably has to fight out his contract regardless. I know he has a lot of kind of side hustles. He does like podcasts and things like that. So I don't know if Marquez's head is fully in it. And I do know Marc-Andre Barriault's is. So almost off that alone, I'm favoring Barriault here. He does land more strikes per minute, better defensively. Similar grappling ability, but I do think Barriault could have a lot of success up against the cage. So he's my lead right now, but this is another fight I think I need to spend a little more time with before I'm definitive in my pick.
All right, yeah, that's a close one. We'll move on to the early prelims now, the final portion of this card. Ian Machado Gary facing Song Kanan, a minus 700 favorite. So the public sharps all align on Gary here, who has looked great since joining the UFC. Now sitting at 10-0, undefeated. He had a lackluster performance, not his last time out, but the bout prior, and he really bounced back in a big way in his most recent performance. I mean, this guy is exciting to watch. What he was able to do to Gabe Green, mixing in a takedown, but landing 116 significant strikes, just a super high level striker. Putting out a consistent volume and a higher volume than that of a Song Kanan. Gary is also going to have, well, these two have similar defensive striking numbers. Gary's length, Gary's footwork is going to be key in stopping him from getting hit much in this matchup. I think we're going to see him quite clearly have the advantage striking against Kanan, and I think he's going to land the much cleaner strikes over the course of this fight. He's just super dynamic. I love what I've seen out of him. Mixing it up is great to see as well. From a young prospect, developing each time that he steps foot into the cage, getting better before our eyes. And yeah, I mean, Gary's built up. He's been on a bunch of pay-per-view cards, I think for good reason. Not only the Irish connection, but just the way that he strikes, the style of fights he puts on, the counters that he lands. And yeah, those big moments that seal fights, pretty often, especially in an arena full of fans. A lot of people will be tuning in to see him this weekend, and I think this is a matchup he should be able to cruise. When it comes to Son Kanon, while he's obviously talented and honestly an above average technical striker. It's just somebody that I think is going to be fighting from behind for a large part in this fight, and struggle a bit with the length and the power that Gary possesses. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, Kanan is a little bit underrated. I think the line has gotten a little bit ridiculous, but similar to Bo Nickel, this is a showcase spot. They know there's a lot of eyes on this card. They're trying to build some of these prospects, and Gary is certainly one of them. Training out of Killcliff FC, as I mentioned before, who was it? Brunson, I know, trains out of there. Someone else, though. I was talking about. Regardless, he's in a very good gym, very good camp. Since he's moved over from Ireland, he's only been getting better and better. Funny little piece, just like a tidbit here. I don't know what else to call it. Anecdote. Anecdote's the word. So, so there was like footage backstage, and Song Kanan signing posters. Gary shows up with his baby, and he's just like holding the baby, like being all cute dad mode, and like has Song like pretty much play with the baby. Like, I don't know, man. It's just funny. Like, how do you go to a fight trying to kill this guy when he's like putting his kid on your lap and just being like a big nice dude? Like, I don't know. It's just a funny little narrative. Gary's kind of out of touch with how people see him, I think, publicly. But he's a super talented fighter, very physically gifted, and he continues to improve every time we see him fight. Like you said, that week's fight was a little bit of a downswing, but he looked excellent last time against Green, and I rate Green higher than Weeks. So I think Gary's going to be able to strike at range, and I think maybe we see him finally grapple a little here. As a very tall fighter, it's tough for him to find those entries for takedowns. But Kanan has just like a 50% takedown defense. I think if Gary wants to grapple or if he gets caught, that path's going to be there for him. But yeah, I think no matter what, this is Gary's fight to win or lose. A little bit hesitant to go with him inside the distance. He seems to always take it to the scorecards. Kanan, he has been KO'd by Griffin, but he is pretty durable. So I like Gary here. Maybe take a small stab on him by decision, but I think more likely I just tie him into a bunch of parlays. This is a showcase spot. Sans, Kanan, like catching him with a lucky KO shot, I think he's fine. And while Gary does take some damage, he's shown to have an excellent chin. So I like Gary here. Should be able to get it done and continue the UFC's narrative as they continue to promote him heavily.
Yep, I think the same here in this spot. Moving on now, bantamweights. Cameron Simon minus 300 facing Mana Martinez in this spot. Should be a good matchup. I think Cameron Simon has a decisive advantage when it comes to the grappling here. But it's actually been his hands that have gotten the victory for him his past two performances, getting the knockout win in both UFC fights thus far. He's a really solid prospect. I'm a big fan of the guy, able to mix it up well, and facing a fighter in Martinez who is really striking dependent, using his hands a majority of the time to get the victory. But a bit underwhelming his last time out. I thought he was likely to find a finish of Brandon Davis in that most recent performance. Was unable to do so. Was actually a very close split decision. And yeah, it's just the boxing of Man Boy I thought was going to be better than what it was. And while he's advertised to be this elite boxer, we really haven't seen it quite put on display here in the UFC. I mean, the fight against Guido Canetti as well, one you would expect him, if he has such good hands, to get the finish there. But again, another fight that went to a split decision. So someone I'm not really going to be jumping the back at plus 240 odds. I think Simon's the better overall fighter, able to keep up with Martinez on the feet, and certainly able to implement his wrestling if he'd like to take him down and wear on him here. This is a fight at bantamweight. I think Simon's going to be undersized compared to Mana Martinez, but I don't think that's going to be a huge factor in deciding this one. I think Simon's going to look the better fighter regardless of where this fight goes. And I think he gets the job done here, stays undefeated.
Yeah, I do like Simon here. He is my pick, but I do think the line's gotten out of hand. I think Simon should be closer to like a minus 150, minus 140, if I'm being completely honest. Very talented kid, super gifted, but he's still developing as a prospect. I think on the feet, Mana could definitely hang with him here. I'm really hoping Simon kind of executes a grappling heavy game plan. I think that's a much clearer path to victory. Not a decent defensive wrestler, but definitely not a great one. And Simon has shown he has some pretty solid submission ability. But yeah, as this line continues to inflate, as people start building parlays, and we see Simon getting over like minus 280, minus 300 some books, he's over minus 300 everywhere right now. It looks like except for DraftKings. So it's really tough for me to want to pay that tag on him. But yeah, I do think he's the better fighter here. I do think the UFC is trying to showcase him. But yeah, Mana's not a terrible fighter. I mean, he's very inconsistent. He looked terrible in that Caneni fight. He looked pretty okay against Davis, but on the regional scene, he was just plowing through everyone. So maybe if that Mana suddenly shows up, he could do something here. I think the line's a little wide. I don't think Simon's like this super prospect the same way we talk about Nicola or Gary. He's a very good prospect, but at the same time, he's getting kind of the same treatment from bookmakers. So there may be a little bit of value on Mana as an underdog. All that being said, I am still backing Simon here, kind of hoping he executes a grappling heavy game plan. We didn't see that last time out against Kozlo. Kozlo very dangerous on the mat with the jiu-jitsu. So yeah, that's the clear path here. Really hope he takes it because on the feet, this is pretty close to a coin flip in my opinion. Mana's going to have a decent reach advantage. Definitely has a lot of power. So yeah, I'm taking Simon. Don't love the price though.
Yeah, fair to say. I mean, 300 is a bit crazy, but yeah, it's tough to want to pull the trigger out on Mana just based on the
Yeah.
performances we've seen and the 2 wins he was able to earn. Not overly impressive. Um, all right, moving on now. Women's strawweight matchup: Jessica Penne taking on Tabitha Ricci. Ricci a minus 300, and this is one where I would be laying a minus 300 price tag. I like Ricci a lot in this spot. She's landed 5 takedowns in both of her previous UFC fights, and her only loss in the UFC was one against Menon Farrow in her short notice debut. So no knocking her there. She should be able to implement the grappling to a great degree of success here in this matchup against Penne, who has just 40% takedown defense in her UFC career. It's been a long UFC career. I mean, Penne is an established veteran, and I think this is sort of a passing of the torch with Ricci coming up the ranks here at women's strawweight. I really like her just overall. Her grappling's great. She has good jiu-jitsu, but the offensive wrestling is going to be better than a lot of girls in this division. I think she is going to find success getting the takedown here against Penne and, working her game. A submission, I think, is going to be live in the spot. She has not hit a submission yet in the UFC, but if you're looking at an inside the distance prop on any girl fight, I think this is one where Ricci may be able to pull it out against a older Jessica Penne. But yeah, I really like her minus 300 just to grind on Penne, get the takedowns, win this fight on the mat rather convincingly.
Yeah, I'm with you on Ricci. I like her here. I think she gets it done. I don't think she gets it done inside the distance. So, I mean, Penny's actually a really good grappler. She hasn't been finished since she fought Andrade like 6 years ago when she got KO'd. So yeah, I'm with you. I like Ricci. I think she could cover the price. She should be able to win the grappling exchanges. Penny actually favors herself a grappler, so she's going to be willing to kind of get into scrambles here. I just think Ricci physically is going to be a bit too much for her. On the feet, Ricci's striking really isn't great. But I don't really think Petty's is either. I think if anything, Ricci will be more aggressive, more willing to eat shots in those exchanges to get her own power punches off. And while neither of these girls are really, and I do see Penny as a slightly more technical, I think Ricci can make up for that on volume and aggressiveness. So I like her here on the feet. She should be able to find the takedown she needs. I expect her to grapple aggressively. Get takedowns as Penny slowly works her way back to her feet a few times. But yeah, probably a 30-27 convincing decision for Tabitha Ricci here. Again, another spot I think they're trying to feature a prospect.
Yeah, and I like her upside as well moving forward in the division, but this is a fight I think we should see her win rather convincingly. All right, just a couple fights left to break down. This fight and the UFC debut for Farid Basharat, his brother Javid already, very successful in the UFC. Someone I certainly have my eye on. But here's Farid here at the bantamweight division going up against Damon Blackshear. This is one I think the odds are a bit too wide. I mean, Farid at a minus 450, it's not a price that I'm willing to pay. I consider him a better striker than his brother Javid, but a lot less effective, at least thus far, when it comes to the offensive grappling in comparison. I mean, Javid's a beast wrestler, and you aren't going to see the exact same out of this Basharat. Instead, Farid is going to be somebody content to work on the back foot, strike moving backwards, use that offensive arsenal that he has to a good advantage, especially against somebody the likes of Blackshear, who won't be one to really offer much in terms of sophisticated kickboxing, but good forward pressure, a decent amount of volume on the feet, and somebody who, probably wouldn't want to wrestle against somebody like a Basharat, but certainly could if the fight is not going his way. I think he's going to be the one moving forward, looking to jab, looking to put a pace on Basharat, and Farid's just going to be landing the cleaner strikes and, kind of catching him on the way in quite a bit here. With bantamweights, I would expect it to be a decision likely for Farid here, just picking apart Blackshear as this fight wears on. But again, I'm not super confident. I want to see a bit more out of this Basharat before I put much money on him. And minus 430, 450, that's just not a price I'm willing to pay. So curious to hear your thoughts. I do have Basharat. I'm just not going to pull the trigger in this spot where I feel Blackshear is a live underdog, despite the divide in terms of skill these two may have.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think Basharat's the pick here. I do think the line is certainly too wide. I mean, Blackshear looked great his last time out against Zalal, securing that draw as a pretty heavy underdog. He's had a lot of good quality regional experience. I mean, he has losses to Sabatello, Pat Sabatini on the regional scene, also a Chris Moutinho, though. Probably not the best thing to have on your resume. But all that being said, I do think he's going to be able to get some of his wrestling off here. It's just going to be a matter of how quickly Farid can get back to his feet. I think just knowing the camp he has at Extreme Couture, training with his brother and others, just a really stacked room at bantamweight there. I think he's going to be fine. I think he'll be able to work back to his feet. Another spot, sometimes you can really just play these UFC narratives. They don't always work out, but this is another spot where they're definitely trying to feature this guy. They're definitely trying to build him up a little bit. And while I agree, the line has gotten completely out of hand, I do think Farid's the pick. I'll probably spend a little more time digging into tape on this one. Just want to see that takedown defense in effect a little bit more than I have to this point. But at the same time, Farid should be able to get this done. He's going to put out way more volume on the feet. Very dynamic striker. Going to show a lot of angles to Blackshear that he's never seen before. So I like Farid here. Not confident enough to lay the huge juice, but yeah, I do think he's the side.
Yeah, and I mean, let me know what you see in terms of his, defensive grappling. I think the offensive grappling is there for Farid. I just don't think it's, on the level of Javid or really something he's going to be looking to implement, especially in this spot. Right, right. Yeah. All right. Just one more fight for us to break down. It has been great taking a look here at UFC 285. The card starts 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Saturday. With this bout, Loik Radzhabov taking on Esteban Rebovics. A good matchup between these, debuting lightweights. Rebovics coming in. This is actually a fight made on short notice, thrown on this card. Two fighting out of the same gym, something that I had noticed. But, Radzhabov, the more dynamic of these two, the more further established when it comes to, skill inside of the cage. And while he does have 4 losses, 1 draw on his record compared to the flawless one of Rebovics, the level of competition is just much higher for him. We have not seen Esteban in there with any opponent quite this caliber thus far. And while he is, a higher volume guy, has more speed than that of Radzhabov. It's just he doesn't have the defensive awareness that we've seen out of Radzhabov in his fights. We're going to see Radzhabov, looking to mix it up a bit. He is the higher level striker. He can keep this fight on the feet, but he certainly should look to have the edge when grappling against this, younger Rebovics here. He's also the bigger guy. I mean, he may not have the height advantage, but we have seen Radzhabov compete at welterweight before. And yeah, I think in this matchup, we're going to see him have a decisive advantage in most positions here. The only path to victory I really see for Rebovics is going to be, kind of point fighting his way to a decision, landing higher volume, moving on the feet, staying on the outside. And I just think Radzhabov, if he's not going to tire in the end of round 2, start around 3, he should be able to just land the cleaner strikes, look the much more complete fighter over the course of a 15-minute bout. So I have him in this spot. I think he probably will find a finish of Rebovics just based on the, defensive liabilities we've seen out of the Argentinian on the feet. But yeah, this is a lower level fight, and I'm probably not going to be too involved in Radzhabov minus 300 here.
Yeah, I'm with you for the most part. I'm on Rabzabov. I think he could cover this price. I think he's the better, more well-rounded fighter. I mean, he's been in PFL for a while. He has wins over Chris Wade. He's been in there with a lot of good competition. So yeah, he's familiar with the big stage. And this Ribovich guy, the one thing I disagree with what you said, I don't think his one path is a point fight. I think it's that early KO. I mean, most of his fights have come via finish in the early rounds. We don't see him extended often. Oftentimes on the regional scene, he's been able to out grapple a lot of these mediocre guys just off his strength and power, but he hasn't really faced a traditional wrestler like Radzabov, and I think that's what he's going to run into here. I think Radzabov's going to be able to get that grappling off early and often. I'm hoping he doesn't stay in too many striking exchanges, but all that being said, he's pretty durable. So I'm not too concerned if that is the case. I think he should have this fight covered anywhere it goes. I mean, the one concern is that he's taking this on short notice. But yeah, he's the better fighter. He's more complete. We've seen a lot of these guys coming off contenders that have been undefeated on the regional scene. Then they get to the UFC, get to face a real competitor, and then they're quickly humbled. I think that's what we're seeing here. Um, One other thing on Radzabov, he was supposed to be on Ultimate Fighter. He was one of the guys that got cut, I think, for one of Connor's guys. Or this fight just opened up, and they're like, "Hey, you want a quicker way in the UFC? How about you just take this fight?" And now he's a massive favorite, opening up one of the biggest cards of the year. So good on Loic getting on this card, getting on the opener. Doesn't have to sit in that tough house and listen to Connor yell at him anymore. So yeah, this is a really good spot for him. I think he gets it done. I will say Ribovich's one path is probably via like a flash KO, but I don't think. Or buddy here, Razabov's ever been KO'd before. So he's been durable to this point. I think he gets his wrestling off and he wins pretty convincingly.
Yeah, I think durability is the X factor. I think Robovics gets hit a lot, and if this is a fight on the feet, he's not going to last a full 15. Um, Against a stronger fighter. Nick, it's been great breaking down UFC 285 with you. Again, everyone, you'll want to tune in on Saturday to Dine Sports, checking out our write up with a full breakdown and prediction for each of these fights. And of course, 10 p.m. Eastern, the main card begins. John Jones making his return, fighting for the heavyweight belt against Cyril Gane. Should be an awesome card. Should be an awesome March of UFC. Nick, thanks for as always for breaking it down with me, and looking forward to this weekend.
Looking forward to it, man. It's been a good one, and good luck, everyone. Let's make some money this weekend.